Welcome to Rising Path. In this video, we're moving into Chiron in the signs. Chiron is one of the most sensitive placements in astrology because it points to a place inside us that may feel tender, exposed, misunderstood, or difficult to fully heal. In astrology, Chiron is often called the wounded healer. But this does not mean you are broken. It means Chiron shows where a wound can become wisdom. It reveals the part of us that may carry insecurity, pain, shame, rejection, or self-doubt, but also the part of us that can grow into deep compassion, understanding, and strength. Chiron is not technically a traditional planet, but it is still very important in astrology. It shows where we may feel different, where life may have made us more sensitive, and where healing takes time, patience, and honesty. And the interesting thing about Chiron is that the wound often becomes connected to the gift. The place where we struggle can become the place where we understand others more deeply. The place where we feel vulnerable can become the place where we develop wisdom. And the part of ourselves we once tried to hide can become part of the medicine we eventually offer. Chiron does not always bring quick healing. Sometimes it shows a wound we revisit again and again, not because we are failing, but because we are learning how to meet that part of ourselves differently, with less shame, less pressure, less self-judgment, and more compassion. So when we look at Chiron by sign, we are looking at the style of the wound, the way it expresses itself, and the healing path that slowly develops through that sign. Each Chiron sign has its own sensitivity, its own fear, its own defense, its own lesson, and its own hidden gift. Chiron teaches us that healing is not always about erasing the past. Sometimes healing means understanding ourselves more honestly. Sometimes it means accepting the part of us we thought made us weak. And sometimes it means realizing that our deepest sensitivity can also become one of our greatest sources of wisdom. So as we move through Chiron in each sign, we're going to explore the wounds, gifts, challenges, shadow patterns, and healing lessons of every placement. Not as a label, not as a life sentence, but as a symbolic map for self-awareness, compassion, and growth. Because Chiron asks important questions. Where do you feel most tender? Where have you believed you were not enough? What part of yourself have you tried to hide, fix, or prove? And what would change if that wound was not proof that something is wrong with you, but a doorway into becoming more whole? So let's begin the journey through Chiron in the signs and explore how this powerful placement reveals the wound, the wisdom, the healing path, and the medicine each sign carries. And if you want to explore your own birth chart in a personal reading, please book a consultation. And if this video helps you understand Chiron more deeply, please like this video and subscribe for more astrology content. Chiron in Aries. Chiron in Aries touches one of the most basic human wounds, the right to be yourself. Aries is the sign of identity, courage, instinct, desire, and personal will. It is the part of us that says, I am here. I want this. I choose this. I am ready to begin. But when Chiron is placed in Aries, that natural fire can become complicated. The person may carry a sensitivity around taking up space, trusting their impulses, standing up for themselves, or feeling allowed to exist without apology. This wound can form in many ways. Some people with Chiron in Aries grew up feeling ignored, dismissed, or unseen, as if their needs did not matter enough to be noticed. Others may have been criticized for being too loud, too angry, too independent, too direct, or too difficult. Some learned early that expressing themselves created conflict, so they began to hold back. Others felt they had to fight for attention, recognition, or respect, and slowly began to confuse strength with always being on guard. Because of this, Chiron in Aries can create a complicated relationship with confidence. On one side, there may be hesitation. The person may second-guess their choices, struggle to act on instinct, avoid confrontation, or wait for someone else to give them permission. They may know what they want, but feel guilty for wanting it. They may feel anger rising inside, but swallow it until it turns into resentment. On the other side, the wound can show up as overcompensation. The person may push too hard, react too quickly, compete when they do not need to, or try to prove they are strong enough to handle everything alone. They may look fearless from the outside, but underneath that armor there can still be a fear of being rejected, attacked, or made to feel powerless again. So this placement is not always easy to recognize. Chiron in Aries may look shy, bold, defensive, independent, impatient, quiet, or intensely driven. But underneath the different expressions, the deeper question is often the same. Am I allowed to be who I am? The healing path begins when the person stops treating their own existence like something that needs to be justified. Chiron in Aries is not asking for aggression. It is asking for honest self-claiming. There is a big difference between fighting everyone and finally standing with yourself. There is a difference between being selfish and having a self. There is a difference between destructive anger and the kind of anger that tells you a boundary has been crossed. For this placement, healing often involves learning how to use fire wisely. Anger does not have to become an explosion. Desire does not have to become guilt. Independence does not have to mean isolation. Courage does not have to mean pretending nothing hurts. The medicine of Chiron in Aries is learning to live from the self without constantly apologizing for having won. It is the slow return of instinct, courage, desire, and personal direction. This placement heals when the person realizes they do not have to be fearless to begin, perfectly confident to choose, or approved by everyone before they trust their own path. Over time, Chiron in Aries teaches a healthier kind of strength, not the kind that has to fight every room it enters, and not the kind that hides its needs to keep the peace. This is the strength of someone who can be honest without being cruel, independent without being closed off, and brave without pretending nothing hurts. And this is where the gift begins to appear. People with Chiron in Aries can become powerful encouragers. They often understand what it feels like to doubt yourself, to feel unseen, or to be afraid of taking the first step. Because of that, they may become the kind of person who helps others find courage in a real and grounded way. Not through empty motivation, but through lived wisdom. They know that confidence is not always natural. Sometimes confidence is rebuilt piece by piece. Sometimes bravery is not loud. Sometimes the most courageous thing a person can do is stop abandoning themselves. At its highest, Chiron in Aries becomes the wound that teaches self-respect. The person learns that they do not have to earn the right to exist. They do not have to become impressive before they deserve space. They do not have to explain every instinct, soften every desire, or shrink every part of themselves to be accepted. This placement asks for the return of the I, not in a selfish way, but in a sacred way. The healing journey is about remembering that your life belongs to you. Your voice matters. Your choices matter. Your presence matters. And even if the world has made you question that, Chiron in Aries slowly teaches you how to come back to yourself with more honesty, courage, and trust. The wound may begin with feeling unsafe to be yourself, but the medicine is learning that you are allowed to be here fully. And if you want to explore your own birth chart in a personal reading, please book a consultation. And if this video helps you understand Chiron more deeply, please like this video and subscribe for more astrology content. Chiron in Taurus. Chiron in Taurus speaks to the wound of worth, safety, stability, and feeling secure in your own body and life. Taurus is connected to value. It rules what we own, what we need, what brings comfort, what helps us feel grounded, and how deeply we believe we deserve peace. It is the sign of the body, the senses, money, food, pleasure, consistency, and self-worth. But when Chiron is in Taurus, these themes can become tender. There may be a quiet feeling of not having enough, not being enough, or not being able to fully relax into life. Even when things look stable on the outside, something inside may still be waiting for the ground to disappear. This placement can form through experiences where security felt uncertain. Maybe love, money, comfort, or support came with conditions. Maybe the person grew up around financial stress, emotional instability, body shame, scarcity, or the feeling that they had to earn care by being useful, quiet, attractive, productive, or easy to manage. Over time, this can create a deep sensitivity around value. A person with Chiron in Taurus may struggle to believe they are worthy without proving something first. They may attach their self-esteem to appearance, possessions, income, productivity, talent, or how much they can provide for others. If those things are threatened, the wound can become very loud. There can also be a complicated relationship with the body. Taurus wants to live through the senses to enjoy touch, rest, beauty, food, nature, music, and physical comfort. But Chiron here can make the body feel like a place of insecurity instead of safety. The person may criticize their appearance, disconnect from their needs, or feel uncomfortable receiving pleasure without guilt. And because Taurus is a fixed earth sign, the wound can sometimes create a strong attachment to control. If life once felt unpredictable, the person may cling tightly to what feels familiar. Change can feel threatening, even when it is needed. Letting go may feel like losing safety. Trusting life may feel risky. So the shadow of Chiron in Taurus is often not dramatic on the surface. It can look like stubbornness, fear of change, overworking, emotional guardedness, possessiveness, or staying too long in situations that feel comfortable but no longer nourish the soul. But underneath that, there is usually a deeper ache. Will I be okay? Will I have enough? Am I valuable if nothing outside me proves it? The healing path for Chiron in Taurus is not about becoming rich, beautiful, perfect, or completely secure forever. Life does not work that way. The deeper healing is learning to build a sense of worth that does not collapse every time circumstances change. This placement asks the person to come back into relationship with the body slowly and kindly, to notice what feels peaceful, to listen to hunger, tiredness, tension, pleasure, and discomfort, to stop treating the body like a project that must be fixed before it deserves care. There is also healing in simplicity for this placement. A steady routine, a calm room, a walk outside, a nourishing meal, a slower pace, a hand on the heart, a moment where the nervous system finally believes, I am safe right now. These small things may sound ordinary, but for Chiron in Taurus, they can become powerful medicine. Because this placement is not only healing the mind, it is healing the relationship with safety itself. Chiron in Taurus also teaches a deeper lesson about receiving. Many people with this placement know how to give, work, endure, and keep going. But receiving may feel uncomfortable. Compliments may be brushed away. Help may be rejected. Pleasure may be delayed. Rest may feel undeserved. Healing begins when the person allows life to support them without immediately wondering what they owe in return. The gift of Chiron in Taurus is a grounded kind of wisdom. Once this person begins to heal, they can help others feel calmer, safer, and more connected to what truly matters. They may have a natural ability to remind people of their worth, not through big speeches, but through presence, through steadiness, through practical care, through beauty, patience, and quiet reassurance. They understand that worth is not something we buy. It is not something we perform. It is not something that disappears when the body changes, money fluctuates, relationships shift, or life becomes uncertain. At its highest, Chiron in Taurus becomes the medicine of deep self-value. The person learns that they are not here only to survive, produce, or hold everything together. They are also here to live, to feel, to enjoy, to receive, to build a life that does not just look secure, but actually feels nourishing from the inside. This placement may begin with a wound around scarcity, self-worth, the body, or safety. But the medicine is learning that your value is never missing. It was only waiting to be remembered beneath the fear, the pressure, and the belief that you had to become more before you could finally be enough. And if you want to explore your own birth chart in a personal reading, please book a consultation. And if this video helps you understand Chiron more deeply, please like this video and subscribe for more astrology content. Chiron in Gemini. Chiron in Gemini brings a wound-around voice, learning, communication, and feeling understood. Gemini is the sign of language, curiosity, ideas, questions, conversation, siblings, early education, and the way we make sense of the world through words. It wants to connect, exchange, ask, listen, joke, think, write, speak, and explore different perspectives. But when Chiron is in Gemini, the mind can become a sensitive place. There may be an early feeling of not being heard correctly. Maybe the person was interrupted, dismissed, mocked, misunderstood, or made to feel unintelligent. Maybe their questions were treated as annoying. Maybe they struggled in school, compared themselves to siblings or classmates, or felt that their way of thinking did not fit the environment around them. Sometimes this placement creates a wound around speaking up. The person may have a lot going on inside, but when it comes time to express it, they may freeze, over-explain, rush, stumble, or worry that they sound foolish. They may replay conversations in their head, wondering if they said too much, too little, the wrong thing, or not the thing they actually meant. There can also be a fear of being judged for not knowing enough. Chiron in Gemini can create the feeling that everyone else has the right words, the sharper mind, the quicker answer, while this person is still trying to organize their thoughts. Even if they are intelligent, observant, and insightful, they may privately doubt their own mind. This is one of the painful contradictions of Chiron in Gemini. The person may have a powerful gift with words, teaching, writing, humor, storytelling, or understanding people. But because the wound sits in that same area, they may not trust the gift at first. They may think their voice is not important. They may believe their ideas are too scattered. They may stay quiet because they are afraid of being corrected. Or they may talk constantly, not because they are confident, but because silence feels unsafe and they are trying to prove they can keep up. The shadow of this placement can show up through nervous energy, overthinking, gossip, comparison, mental restlessness, or using words to avoid deeper feelings. Gemini can move quickly, and with Chiron here, the person may try to think their way out of pain instead of allowing themselves to feel it. There may also be a pattern of collecting information without trusting their own understanding. Reading more, studying more, asking more, checking more, but still feeling unready to speak from their own center. Healing for Chiron in Gemini begins when the person stops treating communication like a test they are always about to fail. Not every conversation has to be perfect. Not every idea has to be fully polished before it is shared. Not every mistake means humiliation. And not knowing something does not mean the mind is weak. This placement heals through reclaiming the right to be curious without shame, to ask questions, to learn at their own pace, to say, I don't know yet, to change their mind, to speak simply instead of performing intelligence. For Chiron in Gemini, the voice becomes medicine when it becomes honest, not clever for approval, not busy to fill silence, not shaped only around what others want to hear, but honest, clear, human, alive. This person may eventually become someone who helps others find language for what they could not explain before. They may be gifted at teaching because they know what confusion feels like. They may be good listeners because they know the pain of being dismissed. They may write, speak, counsel, create, or communicate in a way that makes complicated things feel easier to understand. Their medicine is not about having the loudest voice in the room. It is about giving words to the quiet places, the uncertain places, the thoughts people are afraid to say out loud. At its highest, Chiron in Gemini becomes a bridge between people, ideas, emotions, and perspectives. The person learns that their mind does not have to work like everyone else's to be valuable. Their way of noticing, questioning, connecting, and explaining may be exactly where their wisdom lives. The wound may begin with feeling unheard, unintelligent, misunderstood, or afraid to speak. But the healing comes when the person realizes their voice does not need to be perfect to be meaningful. Their thoughts do not need to be flawless to be worth sharing. And their story does not become less important just because someone once failed to listen. Chiron in Gemini teaches that words can wound, but they can also repair. A conversation can confuse, but it can also liberate. A voice can shake at first and still carry truth. And for this placement, healing often begins the moment the person finally allows themselves to say what has been waiting inside. And if you want to explore your own birth chart in a personal reading, please book a consultation. And if this video helps you understand Chiron more deeply, please like this video and subscribe for more astrology content. Chiron in Cancer. Chiron in Cancer touches the hidden emotional places where we most want to feel safe, loved, and protected. This is a placement connected to emotional safety, family, childhood, belonging, protection, and the need to feel cared for. Cancer is the part of us that wants to come home, not only to a house, but to a feeling, a place where the heart can soften, a place where we do not have to perform, defend, or explain every emotion before it is allowed to exist. With Chiron here, that feeling of home may have been complicated. The person may have grown up sensing that their emotional needs were too much, or that care was inconsistent. Maybe they had to become mature too early. Maybe they became the emotional support for others before anyone really knew how to support them. Maybe family love was present, but tangled with guilt, moodiness, silence, pressure, or unspoken pain. Sometimes this placement shows a wound around being nurtured. The person may know how to care for others beautifully, yet feel awkward, exposed, or even undeserving when care is offered back. They may be the one who checks on everyone, remembers what people need, senses when something is wrong, and quietly carries the emotional temperature of the room. But when they are the one who needs comfort, they may retreat. They may say they are fine when they are not. They may hide their softness behind competence, humor, distance, or overgiving. Chiron in Cancer can create a deep fear of emotional rejection. The person may worry that if they show how sensitive they really are, others will pull away, judge them, or use that vulnerability against them. So they learn to protect the heart carefully, sometimes too carefully. This can lead to patterns of clinging and withdrawing, wanting closeness but fearing dependency, longing to be held but not trusting that support will stay, giving love generously but feeling secretly hurt when others do not notice what they need without being told. And that is one of the painful lessons of this placement, learning that people cannot always care for what has never been spoken. Cancer energy is intuitive, but healing does not mean expecting everyone to read the heart perfectly. Chiron in Cancer often has to learn how to name its needs without shame. To say, I need reassurance. I need softness. I need time. I need to feel safe with you. That may sound simple, but for this placement, it can feel incredibly vulnerable. There can also be old pain connected to family roles. The person may have been the caretaker, the quiet one, the sensitive one, the responsible one, or the one who absorbed emotions that were never really theirs to carry. As an adult, they may still feel guilty for having boundaries, especially with family or people they love. But healing requires a different kind of loyalty. Not loyalty to old emotional patterns. Not loyalty to guilt. Not loyalty to keeping everyone comfortable while the inner child remains unheard. The medicine of Chiron in Cancer is learning to become a safe place for yourself first. Not because other people do not matter, but because your inner world cannot depend entirely on whether someone else knows how to hold it. This placement heals through tenderness, but not the weak kind. It is the tenderness that tells the truth. The tenderness that protects without closing down completely. The tenderness that allows love in without abandoning the self. And once this person begins to heal, their gift can be extraordinary. Chiron in Cancer can offer a kind of care that feels deeply human. They may understand grief, loneliness, family wounds, emotional hunger, and the quiet pain of pretending everything is okay. Because of that, they can become comforting without being fake, wise without being cold, and nurturing without needing to control. They may create home for others through their presence, through listening, through warmth, through emotional honesty, through reminding people that softness is not something to be ashamed of. At its highest, Chiron in Cancer teaches that healing is not only about where you came from. It is also about the emotional home you build within yourself now. You may not be able to rewrite every childhood memory, change every family pattern, or receive the exact care you once needed from the people you wanted it from most. But you can stop treating your needs like a burden. You can stop confusing emotional hunger with weakness. You can stop calling yourself too sensitive when really, you were never given enough room to feel safely. Chiron in Cancer may begin with the ache of not feeling held in the way the heart needed. But the medicine is learning that your softness deserves protection, your needs deserve language, and your heart deserves a home that does not disappear every time you are vulnerable. And if you want to explore your own birth chart in a personal reading, please book a consultation. And if this video helps you understand Chiron more deeply, please like this video and subscribe for more astrology content. Chiron in Leo. Chiron in Leo brings healing work around confidence, visibility, creativity, and the courage to be seen as you truly are. Leo is connected to the heart. It rules self-expression, joy, play, romance, performance, personal style, creativity, and the part of us that wants to shine without shame. Leo wants to feel special, not in a shallow way, but in the way every person wants to feel recognized for the light they naturally carry. With Chiron in Leo, that light may have felt unsafe to show. There may be a wound around being noticed. The person may have learned early that standing out brought criticism, jealousy, embarrassment, rejection, or unwanted attention. Maybe they were laughed at when they expressed themselves. Maybe their creativity was dismissed. Maybe they were made to feel dramatic for having feelings, or arrogant for wanting praise, or childish for wanting joy. So instead of shining freely, they may start editing themselves. They may become quieter than they really are. They may hide their talents until they feel perfect. They may avoid the spotlight, even when part of them secretly longs to be seen. Or they may only allow themselves to be visible in controlled ways, where they can manage the reaction and avoid the risk of rejection. For some people, this placement goes the other way. The wound can create a hunger for validation that is hard to satisfy. They may perform confidence, chase approval, or feel crushed when they are not acknowledged. Compliments may feel good for a moment, but not fully land, because the deeper wound is not only about attention. It is about whether they believe their true self is worthy of love when no one is clapping. That is the tender place of Chiron in Leo. It is not simply about wanting to be admired. It is about wanting to feel safe being radiant, safe being expressive, safe being proud of something, safe taking up emotional and creative space without immediately feeling foolish, exposed, or too much. Leo also rules the inner child, and with Chiron here, there can be old pain around play, innocence, and being allowed to enjoy life. The person may have had to grow up too quickly, suppress their natural excitement, or become careful about showing enthusiasm. Somewhere inside, there may still be a younger self waiting for permission to laugh loudly, create badly, dance freely, love boldly, and be imperfect without humiliation. The healing path for Chiron in Leo often begins with reclaiming joy in small, honest ways. Not performing joy, not forcing confidence, not pretending to be fearless, but letting the heart have a voice again. This could come through art, music, storytelling, fashion, humor, acting, dancing, romance, leadership, working with children, or simply allowing yourself to enjoy what you enjoy without needing to make it impressive. Chiron in Leo teaches that creativity does not have to be exceptional before it is meaningful. You do not have to be the best singer to sing. You do not have to be a perfect artist to make art. You do not have to be admired by everyone before your expression matters. The shadow of this placement can appear when the person disconnects from their own heart. They may become overly serious, overly self-conscious, or afraid to look silly. They may compare their gifts to others and decide not to try. They may downplay themselves so no one can accuse them of wanting attention. But wanting to be seen is not a flaw. Wanting encouragement is not weakness. Wanting your life to feel colorful, creative, and alive does not make you selfish. For Chiron in Leo, healing means learning to separate healthy visibility from ego. There is a kind of attention that feeds insecurity, and there is a kind of recognition that nourishes the soul. This placement slowly learns the difference. The gift here can be beautiful. Once the wound begins to soften, Chiron in Leo can become a powerful encourager of other people's light. These people may notice hidden talent in others. They may help someone feel special again. They may create spaces where people feel safe to express themselves without being mocked or minimized. They know how painful it is to be shamed for shining, so they often become generous with warmth when they are no longer trapped in comparison. At its highest, Chiron in Leo is the return of the heart. It is the moment a person stops hiding their color, just because someone once made them feel embarrassed for having it. It is the courage to create without needing applause, to love without trying to look cool, to lead without dominating, and to be proud without needing to prove superiority. This placement may begin with a wound around visibility, confidence, creativity, or being recognized. But the medicine is learning that your light does not have to be earned through perfection. It does not need everyone's approval. It does not become less real because someone failed to celebrate it. Chiron in Leo reminds you that there is a part of you that was born to express, to feel, to create, to play, and to bring warmth into the world. The real healing begins when you stop asking that part of yourself to stay hidden. And if you want to explore your own birth chart in a personal reading, please book a consultation. And if this video helps you understand Chiron more deeply, please like this video and subscribe for more astrology content. Chiron in Virgo. Chiron in Virgo can feel like a quiet ache around never being good enough. This is a deeply sensitive placement because Virgo is connected to improvement, service, health, daily life, skill, usefulness, and the way we try to make things better. Virgo notices what is out of place. It sees the detail others miss. It wants to refine, organize, understand, repair, and be helpful in a practical way. But when Chiron is in Virgo, that gift of noticing can turn inward in painful ways. The person may become painfully aware of every flaw, every mistake, every unfinished part of themselves. Even when they are doing well, there may be an inner voice pointing out what could have been better. What should have been said differently? What should have been fixed sooner? What still needs work? This placement can come with a wound-around usefulness. There may be a feeling that love has to be earned by being helpful, capable, productive, or needed. The person may find it easier to support others than to receive support themselves. They may become the one who fixes the problem, remembers the details, gives the advice, notices what is missing, and quietly carries responsibilities no one asked them to carry. And because Virgo is so connected to standards, Chiron here can make the person feel as if they are always being measured. By others, by life, by their own expectations. There may be early experiences of criticism, comparison, perfectionism, illness, instability, or being made to feel that mistakes were not safe. Maybe they were praised only when they performed well. Maybe they were expected to be responsible too young. Maybe their body, habits, emotions, or abilities were picked apart. Or maybe they learned that being useful was the best way to avoid rejection. So the wound becomes subtle but persistent. Not always loud. Not always dramatic. More like a background pressure to do better, be better, heal faster, work harder, explain more clearly, look more put together, and never become a burden. Chiron and Virgo may struggle with rest because rest can feel unproductive. They may struggle with imperfection because imperfection can feel like failure. They may struggle with asking for help because they are used to being the one who helps. This placement can also show sensitivity around the body and health. The person may worry about symptoms, routines, food, appearance, energy levels, or whether their body is functioning the right way. Sometimes the body becomes the place where stress speaks, especially when emotions have been managed, analyzed, or pushed aside for too long. And yet, the healing for Chiron in Virgo is not found through becoming perfect. That is the trap. Trying to perfect the wound only keeps the wound in charge. The medicine begins when the person learns to relate to themselves with more kindness than criticism. Virgo has a beautiful desire to improve life, but improvement without compassion becomes punishment. Healing does not mean turning yourself into a project that is never allowed to be complete. For Chiron in Virgo, one of the greatest lessons is learning the difference between devotion and self-erasure. It is beautiful to care. It is beautiful to help. It is beautiful to develop skill, discipline, and integrity. But you are not here only to be useful. You are not here only to solve everyone's problems. You are not here only to be the calm, competent person who never needs anything. There is healing in allowing things to be human. A messy day, an unfinished task, a mistake, a body that changes, an emotion that does not make logical sense, a moment where you do not know how to fix it yet. Chiron in Virgo often becomes wise through learning that life is not always repaired through control. Sometimes healing comes through gentleness, patience, and the willingness to stay present with what is imperfect instead of rejecting it. And once this placement begins to soften, the gift can be remarkable. These people can become deeply helpful in ways that actually heal. Not by judging, correcting, or making others feel small, but by noticing what is needed and offering it with care. They may be gifted in healing work, teaching, writing, craft, health, organization, problem solving, or any path where attention to detail becomes a form of service. They know how much criticism can hurt, so at their best, they learn to offer guidance without shame. They can help others improve without making them feel broken. They can bring order without removing warmth. They can turn skill into medicine. At its highest, Chiron in Virgo teaches that wholeness is not the same as perfection. You can be healing and still have difficult days. You can be wise and still make mistakes. You can be helpful and still have needs. You can be unfinished and still worthy of love. This placement may begin with the pain of feeling flawed, criticized, inadequate, or never fully ready. But the medicine is learning that you do not have to fix every part of yourself before you are allowed to be at peace. You are not a problem to solve. You are a person to care for. And sometimes the deepest healing begins when you stop attacking your imperfections and start listening to what they are trying to show you. And if you want to explore your own birth chart in a personal reading, please book a consultation. And if this video helps you understand Chiron more deeply, please like this video and subscribe for more astrology content. Chiron in Libra. Chiron in Libra brings the healing journey into relationships, love, fairness, harmony, and the way we find ourselves through other people. Libra is the sign of connection. It wants balance, beauty, peace, cooperation, romance, respect, and mutual understanding. It is the part of us that notices how people treat each other, how energy moves between two people, and whether a relationship feels equal or one-sided. But with Chiron in Libra, relationships can become the place where old pain is most easily activated. There may be a wound around being chosen, valued, loved, or treated fairly. The person may have learned early that peace had to be maintained at any cost, even if that meant hiding their real feelings. They may have grown up around conflict, emotional distance, unfair treatment, or relationships where one person's needs matter more than the others. So they become very aware of other people. Too aware sometimes. They may sense a shift in tone, a change in mood, a small sign of disapproval, and immediately wonder what they did wrong. They may try to stay pleasant, understanding, attractive, reasonable, easy to love, easy to be around, not because they are fake, but because somewhere inside, being disliked or rejected may feel deeply unsafe. Chiron in Libra can create a painful pattern of losing the self inside the relationship. The person may compromise before they even know what they want. They may agree too quickly, apologize too often, or avoid saying something honest because they do not want to disturb the peace. They may attract people who are unavailable, selfish, critical, or inconsistent, and then work even harder to become lovable enough to fix the imbalance. But love cannot be built by one person doing all the emotional labor. And harmony is not real harmony if it requires self-abandonment. That is one of the deeper lessons of Chiron in Libra. This placement has to learn the difference between true peace and quiet resentment. True peace has honesty in it. It has respect. It has room for both people. False peace looks calm on the surface, but underneath it, someone is disappearing. There can also be wounds around beauty, desirability, and comparison. Libra is connected to aesthetics and attraction, and Chiron here can make the person question whether they are appealing enough, graceful enough, charming enough, or worthy of love as they are. They may compare themselves to others, adjust themselves to fit what someone wants, or feel that being loved depends on staying pleasing. At times, This placement can swing between extremes. The person may crave partnership deeply, but also fear what happens when they get close. They may want equality, but struggle to ask for it. They may avoid conflict for a long time, then suddenly feel hurt that no one noticed how much they were giving. The healing begins when Chiron in Libra stops treating relationship as a mirror that decides their worth. Other people can reflect things back to us, but they cannot be the only place we go to find ourselves. A partner's approval, a friend's response, or someone's attraction may feel powerful, but it cannot become the foundation of identity. For this placement, healing often means learning how to stay present in connection without abandoning personal truth. It means saying, I care about this relationship, but I also care about myself inside it. It means allowing disagreement without assuming love is over. It means understanding that boundaries do not destroy intimacy. They protect the conditions where intimacy can actually grow. Chiron in Libra may need to practice choosing relationships that are not based on performance. Relationships where they do not have to constantly manage the mood, soften the truth, earn affection, or become smaller to keep someone close. The medicine is mutuality, not perfect balance every second, because real relationships are human and imperfect, but a living balance where care moves both ways, where listening is shared, where repair is possible, where beauty is not only in appearances but in honesty, kindness, accountability, and respect. And when this placement begins to heal, the gift is beautiful. Chiron in Libra can become deeply wise about relationships. These people may understand emotional nuance, fairness, mediation, and the quiet ways people hurt each other without meaning to. They may become gifted at helping others communicate, repair, soften, forgive, or recognize unhealthy dynamics. But their greatest growth comes when they stop using that gift only for everyone else. They must also bring fairness back to themselves. Their needs matter too. Their feelings belong in the room too. Their voice has a place at the table too. At its highest, Chiron in Libra teaches that love does not require self-erasure. Being kind does not mean being silent. Being graceful does not mean swallowing pain. Being loving does not mean accepting imbalance just to avoid being alone. This wound may begin with rejection, unfairness, people-pleasing, comparison, or the fear of not being chosen. But the medicine is learning to choose yourself without closing your heart, to build relationships where honesty is not punished, to let love become a meeting place, not a performance, to discover that the right connections will not ask you to disappear in order to be loved. And if you want to explore your own birth chart in a personal reading, please book a consultation. And if this video helps you understand Chiron more deeply, please like this video and subscribe for more astrology content. Chiron in Scorpio. Chiron in Scorpio carries a wound-around trust, emotional exposure, intimacy, and the fear of being powerless. This is a deep placement. Scorpio does not deal with the polished version of life. It deals with what sits underneath: fear, grief, desire, betrayal, attachment, survival, secrets, control, and the parts of the heart that do not open easily after they have been hurt. With Chiron here, the person may have learned early that closeness is not always safe. There may have been experiences of betrayal, loss, manipulation, abandonment, emotional intensity, family secrets, or situations where they felt they had very little control over what was happening to them. Even if the outside story looks calm, the inner world can carry a strong memory of danger. So they become careful. Careful with trust. Careful with vulnerability. Careful with how much of themselves they reveal. Chiron in Scorpio can make someone highly perceptive. They may notice hidden motives, emotional shifts, tension in the room, or the truth behind what someone is saying. This can become a gift, but it often begins as protection. If you had to read people in order to feel safe, your intuition may become sharp very quickly. The challenge is that protection can slowly turn into suspicion. The person may want intimacy, but feel uncomfortable when things become too real. They may crave depth, yet fear being fully known. They may test people without meaning to, pull back when they start to care, or keep certain feelings hidden so no one has enough access to hurt them. And with Scorpio, pain is rarely casual. When this sign loves, it loves deeply. When it loses, it remembers. When trust is broken, the wound can echo for years. Chiron here may struggle with letting go, not because they want to stay in pain, but because some part of them believes remembering is the only way to stay protected. There can also be a complicated relationship with control. If life once felt emotionally unsafe, control can feel like survival. The person may try to control what others know, what they feel, how close someone gets, or how much power another person has over their heart. But the more tightly they grip, the more exhausting relationships can become. Scorpio also rules intimacy and shared vulnerability, so this placement can bring wounds around sexuality, emotional merging, jealousy, secrecy, or the fear of being consumed by another person. Love may feel powerful, but also risky. Desire may bring up fear. Emotional closeness may feel like standing at the edge of something unknown. The healing path is not about becoming open with everyone. That would not be wisdom. Chiron in Scorpio heals through discernment. It learns that some people deserve access and some do not. It learns that boundaries are not the same as walls. It learns that privacy can be healthy, but hiding from life forever is not the same as being safe. Real healing begins when the person can tell the truth to themselves first. Not the dramatic truth, the honest one. I was hurt. I am scared to trust. I want closeness, but I am afraid of what it may cost. I have been calling control strength, but maybe I am tired. For Chiron in Scorpio, healing often comes through facing what has been buried. This may happen through therapy, shadow work, deep conversations, spiritual practice, grief work, creative expression, or relationships that are steady enough to teach the nervous system something new. The wound may not disappear quickly, but it can transform. That is the power of Scorpio. It does not just patch over pain. It takes the person into the root of it. It asks what fear has been running the story. It asks what old survival patterns are still making decisions. It asks where the person has confused emotional armor with true power. Because real power is not never needing anyone. Real power is being able to feel deeply without losing yourself. It is being able to trust slowly, choose wisely, and walk away when something is not safe without closing your heart to life completely. The gift of Chiron in Scorpio is emotional courage. These people can become incredibly healing for others because they are not afraid of depth. They can sit with grief, trauma, fear, shame, and transformation without needing to rush someone into being fine. They understand that some healing is messy. Some healing is private. Some healing happens in the dark before it ever becomes visible. At their best, they help others feel less alone in the places most people avoid. They may become powerful counselors, artists, healers, researchers, truth tellers, protectors, or simply people with the rare ability to meet pain with honesty instead of fear. Chiron in Scorpio may begin with a wound around betrayal, trust, intimacy, loss, or control. But the medicine is learning that vulnerability does not have to mean weakness. Trust does not have to mean blindness. Love does not have to mean surrendering your power. And survival does not have to become your whole identity. This placement teaches that what has been wounded can also become deeply wise. The heart can open again, but differently this time, with clearer boundaries, with stronger instincts, with more respect for the truth, and with the understanding that healing is not about pretending the darkness was never there. It is about walking through it and discovering that it did not take your soul from you. And if you want to explore your own birth chart in a personal reading, please book a consultation. Also, if this video helps you understand Chiron more deeply, please like this video and subscribe for more astrology content. Chiron in Sagittarius. Chiron in Sagittarius carries a wound around truth, faith, freedom, and the search for meaning. Sagittarius wants the bigger picture. It wants wisdom, honesty, experience, adventure, and a sense that life is leading somewhere. But with Chiron here, the journey toward meaning can be painful. The person may have grown up around beliefs that felt limiting, harsh, confusing, or unsafe to question. Religion, culture, education, family morals, or teachers may have shaped their early understanding of truth in a way that felt restrictive or judgmental. For others, the wound may come from the opposite experience, a lack of guidance, a lack of direction, or the feeling of being spiritually and philosophically lost. So Chiron in Sagittarius can create a complicated relationship with certainty. Part of the person may long for answers. They may want to believe in something fully, to trust life, to feel guided, to know that their experiences have meaning. But another part may distrust certainty because certainty may have once been used to control, shame, or silence them. This can create a swing between belief and doubt. They may throw themselves into an idea, a philosophy, a spiritual path, or a future vision, only to feel disappointed when it does not hold everything together. Or they may keep searching from one path to another, hoping the next book, teacher, place, or experience will finally explain who they are and where they are going. There can also be a wound around being wrong. Sagittarius is connected to knowledge, teaching, and perspective. So Chiron here may make the person sensitive to feeling naive, ignorant, uneducated, judged, or misguided. They may hide their questions because they do not want to look foolish, or they may defend their opinion strongly because uncertainty feels too exposed. But the healing of this placement is not about finding one perfect belief system. It is about developing a living relationship with truth, a truth that can grow, a truth that can be questioned, a truth that becomes deeper through experience. Chiron in Sagittarius teaches that not knowing yet does not mean you are lost forever. Changing your mind does not mean you were foolish. Leaving an old belief behind does not mean life has no meaning. Sometimes it means your soul is becoming more honest. This placement can also bring pain around freedom. The person may feel trapped by expectations, cultural pressure, family rules, or the fear of disappointing people. They may long to travel, study, teach, write, explore, or live in a way that feels bigger than the world they came from. But they also have to learn the difference between freedom and escape. Sometimes the next journey opens the soul. Sometimes a new place, idea, course, or adventure brings real growth. But sometimes movement becomes a way to outrun disappointment, grief, or the fear of sitting still with unanswered questions. The medicine of Chiron in Sagittarius is honest exploration, not blind optimism, not bitter cynicism, not pretending to know everything, and not giving up on meaning just because earlier answers failed. This placement heals when wisdom comes from lived experience, not only from borrowed philosophies. The person begins to trust the truth that has been tested by life, the truth that survives mistakes, heartbreak, detours, and changing perspectives. And once this begins to heal, Chiron in Sagittarius can become a powerful guide for others. These people may help others find hope after disillusionment. They may teach in a way that feels human, not superior. They may speak about spirituality, philosophy, culture, learning, travel, or personal growth with honesty because they have questioned so much themselves. Their wisdom is not the kind that needs everyone to agree. It is the kind that says, I have doubted too. I have wandered too. I have lost faith and found pieces of it again. At its highest, Chiron in Sagittarius becomes the healing of the seeker. The person learns that truth is not always a fixed destination. Sometimes it is a road. Sometimes it is a conversation with life. Sometimes it arrives through mistakes, strange detours, broken beliefs, and moments where the old map no longer works. This placement may begin with a wound around faith, judgment, education, freedom, or not knowing what to believe. But the medicine is learning to trust the journey without needing every answer at once, to keep the heart open without becoming naive, to seek wisdom without turning it into superiority, and to understand that losing an old belief can be painful, but it can also make room for a more honest relationship with life. Chiron in Sagittarius reminds us that healing is not only about finding the truth. Sometimes it is about becoming brave enough to keep searching. And if you want to explore your own birth chart in a personal reading, please book a consultation. And if this video helps you understand Chiron more deeply, please like this video and subscribe for more astrology content. Chiron in Capricorn. Chiron in Capricorn brings the wound into the world of achievement, responsibility, authority, success, and self-respect. Capricorn is the part of us that wants to build something real. It wants structure, purpose, maturity, discipline, and a life that feels meaningful because effort has gone somewhere. Capricorn understands time. It knows that some things are earned slowly through patience, commitment, and consistency. But when Chiron is in Capricorn, the climb can feel heavy from the beginning. There may be a deep sensitivity around failure, status, competence, or being taken seriously. The person may feel pressure to prove themselves, even when no one is asking them to. They may carry the sense that they have to be strong, capable, responsible, and in control before they are allowed to relax. Often, this placement points to early experiences where responsibility arrived too soon. Maybe the person had to grow up quickly. Maybe they felt unsupported by authority figures, judged by parents, teachers, or society, or pushed to succeed without being emotionally understood. They may have learned that approval came through achievement, discipline, good behavior, or being the one who did not fall apart. So instead of feeling naturally confident in their ability to build a life, they may feel haunted by the fear of not measuring up. Chiron in Capricorn can create an inner pressure that says, do more, be better, work harder, don't fail, don't need too much, don't let anyone see you struggling. And because Capricorn energy is so connected to respect, this wound can be especially painful when the person feels dismissed, underestimated, embarrassed, or treated as if they are not capable. They may be very sensitive to criticism, even if they hide it well. On the outside, they may appear composed. Inside, they may be carrying a private fear that one mistake could expose them as not good enough. For some, this placement creates fear of ambition. They may want success, but feel guilty for wanting it. They may hesitate to step into leadership because visibility brings the risk of judgment. They may avoid big goals because failure would feel too personal. For others, the wound shows up as overachievement. They may chase accomplishment, recognition, money, titles, or control, hoping that one day they will finally feel secure within themselves. But every mountain climbed reveals another mountain. Every success brings relief for a moment, and then the pressure returns. That is the trap of Chiron in Capricorn, believing that self-worth will arrive after the next achievement. The healing path begins when the person separates their value from their performance. This does not mean giving up ambition. Capricorn still needs purpose. It still needs meaningful work, long-term goals, and something solid to build. But healing comes when ambition is no longer driven by shame. There's a very different energy between I want to build something meaningful and I must prove I deserve respect. Chiron in Capricorn asks the person to redefine success in a way that includes the soul, not just the resume. A successful life is not only one that looks impressive from the outside, it is also one where the person can breathe, where they can rest without guilt, where they can be respected without becoming hard, where they can lead without carrying the whole world alone. This placement also brings lessons around authority. The person may have to heal from harsh, absent, controlling, or disappointing authority figures. At some point, they are asked to become their own inner authority, not by becoming cold or rigid, but by learning to trust their own judgment, timing, and maturity. They do not need to keep living under the voice of someone who doubted them. They do not need to keep proving themselves to people who were never going to give them the validation they needed. And they do not need to confuse emotional toughness with true strength. The gift of Chiron in Capricorn is earned wisdom. These people often become deeply capable, not because life was easy, but because they learned how to endure, organize, commit, and keep going. When they heal, they can become steady guides for others. They may understand pressure, ambition, responsibility, failure, discipline, and the courage it takes to rebuild after disappointment. At their best, they teach by example, not in a loud way, more through integrity, through patience, through showing that real strength can be calm, humble, and deeply human. Chiron in Capricorn may begin with the wound of feeling unsupported, inadequate, overburdened, or afraid of failure. But the medicine is learning that you are more than what you achieve. Your worth is not measured only by productivity. Your life does not have to become a performance of competence. And you are allowed to succeed without abandoning your softer, more vulnerable self along the way. This placement reminds us that healing can mean building a life from a different foundation. Not shame, not fear, not the desperate need to prove something, but self-respect, purpose, inner authority, and the quiet strength of knowing that even if the climb has been difficult, you are still allowed to reach the top in your own way, at your own pace, without losing yourself on the mountain. And if you want to explore your own birth chart in a personal reading, please book a consultation. Also, if this video helps you understand Chiron more deeply, please like this video and subscribe for more astrology content. Chiron in Aquarius. Chiron in Aquarius carries the ache of feeling different before feeling accepted. Aquarius is connected to individuality, friendship, community, future vision, social change, ideas, technology, groups, and the parts of us that do not always fit neatly into what everyone else expects. It is the outsider, the observer, the reformer, the strange genius, the one who can step back from the crowd and see the pattern. But with Chiron in Aquarius, being different may not have felt empowering at first. It may have felt lonely. This placement can point to early experiences of exclusion, rejection, bullying, alienation, or the sense of being emotionally out of sync with the people around you. The person may have felt too unusual for their family, too detached for emotional spaces, too intense for casual friendships, or too independent for groups that expected everyone to think the same way. Sometimes Chiron in Aquarius grows up feeling like they are watching life from behind glass. They understand people, but do not always feel included by them. They can read the group dynamic, but still feel like they are not fully part of it. They may have friends, social circles, or communities, yet carry a private feeling of being hard to place. Because of this, they may learn to protect themselves through distance. If belonging once came with disappointment, detachment can feel safer. They may become the observer instead of the participant, the one who analyzes feelings instead of entering them, the one who says they do not care, even when rejection cut deeper than they want to admit. Aquarius is often associated with independence, but Chiron here reveals the softer truth underneath. Even the outsider still needs connection. This placement can create a wound around groups and belonging. The person may want community, but feel suspicious of group pressure. They may long for friendship, but fear being misunderstood. They may resist labels, boxes, trends, and social rules, yet secretly wonder why belonging seems easier for everyone else. At times, the wound may show up as rebellion for its own sake. If they have felt rejected, they may reject first. They may decide that they do not need anyone, that being different makes them above the crowd, or that emotional closeness is too messy to be worth it. But underneath that coolness, there is often a younger part of the self that simply wanted to be welcomed without having to become ordinary. The healing of Chiron in Aquarius is not about fitting in. That would betray the soul of the placement. The healing is learning to belong without self-erasure. To find people who can meet the truth of who you are, not only the version of you that is easiest to understand. To stop shrinking your originality for approval, but also to stop using difference as a wall against intimacy. This placement asks for a new relationship with community. Not every group is your group. Not every friendship will understand your mind, your rhythm, your vision, or your emotional language. But that does not mean you are meant to live on the outside forever. Aquarius carries a future-facing medicine. People with Chiron here often see possibilities before others are ready. They may think differently, love differently, create differently, or question systems that others take for granted. In childhood, that difference may have been treated as a problem. Later, it can become the very thing that makes them important. There's a gift here for connecting with people who feel unseen by ordinary spaces. Chiron in Aquarius may become the friend who does not judge the weird part, the thinker who gives language to what society has ignored, the creator who builds a new kind of room when the old room has no place for them. The person who reminds others that belonging should not require becoming smaller, quieter, or less alive. At its highest, this placement transforms alienation into vision. The person learns that being different is not the same as being defective. Their distance may become perspective. Their sensitivity to exclusion may become compassion. Their outsider experience may become the reason they care about fairness, freedom, and spaces where more people are allowed to exist honestly. Chiron in Aquarius may begin with the wound of not fitting in, not being understood, or feeling disconnected from the group. But the medicine is discovering that the right people will not need you to become ordinary before they can love you. And more importantly, you do not have to abandon your own uniqueness just to avoid loneliness. This placement teaches that healing can look like finding your people, but it can also look like becoming your own people first, accepting the strange, brilliant, awkward, visionary, detached, sensitive, independent parts of yourself that once felt too difficult to explain. You were not born to disappear into the crowd. You were not born to stand outside life forever either. Chiron in Aquarius asks you to create a truer kind of belonging, one where freedom and connection can exist in the same breath. And if you want to explore your own birth chart in a personal reading, please book a consultation. Also, if this video helps you understand Chiron more deeply, please like this video and subscribe for more astrology content. Chiron in Pisces. Chiron in Pisces carries a wound that can be hard to explain because it often lives in the invisible places. Pisces is the sign of sensitivity, compassion, imagination, dreams, spirituality, surrender, forgiveness, and connection to something greater than the self. It is the ocean of the zodiac. It feels what others miss. It absorbs moods, symbols, music, pain, beauty, grief, and the emotional atmosphere around it. But with Chiron in Pisces, that openness can become overwhelming. This placement can bring a wound-around feeling too sensitive for the world, too porous, too easily affected, or too connected to suffering that other people seem able to ignore. The person may have felt from early on that life was painful in a way they could not fully name. Maybe they absorbed family sadness. Maybe they felt responsible for other people's emotions. Maybe they escaped into fantasy, spirituality, art, sleep, daydreaming, or isolation because the real world felt too harsh. There can also be a deep ache around faith. Not necessarily religious faith, although that can be part of it. This is faith in life, faith in love, faith that there is meaning behind the pain, faith that the world is not only disappointment, loss, confusion, and endings. With Chiron in Pisces, that faith may have been bruised. The person may have experienced disillusionment, abandonment, betrayal, grief, or emotional chaos that made them wonder whether it was safe to hope. They may have trusted too much, forgiven too quickly, or believed in people who were not able to meet them with the same depth of care. Over time, the heart can become tired. Not closed exactly, but tired from feeling so much. Pisces wants to merge, but Chiron here has to learn where compassion ends and self-loss begins. This is one of the major lessons of the placement. The person may have a beautiful ability to understand pain, to forgive, to empathize, to sense what someone needs without being told. But if the wound is active, they may confuse love with rescue. They may take on emotions that are not theirs, excuse harmful behavior, or disappear into someone else's suffering because helping feels easier than having boundaries. And sometimes when the world feels too heavy, this placement can drift. Avoidance can become a coping mechanism. Not always in dramatic ways. It might look like procrastination, emotional numbness, idealizing people, romanticizing pain, avoiding practical responsibilities, staying in confusing situations, or hoping something will magically change without having to face the truth directly. But Pisces is not weak. Pisces is just not meant to heal through force. Chiron in Pisces needs gentleness, but it also needs clarity. It needs spiritual connection, but not illusion. It needs compassion, but not martyrdom. It needs imagination, but not escape from reality. The healing begins when the person realizes they are allowed to care deeply without carrying everything. They can love someone and still have limits. They can forgive and still walk away. They can feel the pain of the world without making their own life a sacrifice. They can be spiritual without ignoring their human needs. For Chiron in Pisces, healing is often quiet. It may come through prayer, meditation, music, film, poetry, therapy, water, dreams, creative work, solitude, or moments where the person finally lets themselves cry without judging the emotion. This placement needs spaces where the soul can breathe. There is also powerful healing in learning to trust intuition without losing discernment. Not every feeling is a message. Not every fantasy is a calling. Not every person who needs saving is meant to be carried. Chiron in Pisces becomes wiser when it learns to listen deeply, but also stay anchored. Because the gift here is extraordinary. These people can bring comfort to places where words are not enough. They may have a healing presence, artistic sensitivity, spiritual insight, emotional depth, or a natural ability to make others feel less alone in their sadness. They can understand brokenness without being frightened by it. They can see beauty in the wounded, the forgotten, the strange, and the unseen. But their medicine becomes strongest when they stop abandoning themselves in the name of compassion. At its highest, Chiron in Pisces teaches that sensitivity is not a curse. It is a sacred instrument, but it has to be protected. A person with this placement does not need to harden completely. They do not need to become cynical to survive, but they do need to stop giving unlimited access to everyone who is hurting. This placement may begin with the pain of feeling lost, overwhelmed, abandoned, spiritually confused, or too tender for the world. But the medicine is learning how to stay open without dissolving, to keep faith without becoming naive, to love deeply without disappearing, and to understand that healing does not always mean saving everyone else. Sometimes it means coming back to your own soul. Chiron in Pisces reminds us that the wound may be invisible, but that does not make it imaginary. The longing, the grief, the sensitivity, the dreams, the quiet sadness, they all deserve compassion. And over time, this placement can turn pain into grace. Not the kind of grace that pretends everything is fine. The kind that has seen sorrow and still chooses softness. The kind that has lost faith before and slowly learns how to believe again. And if you want to explore your own birth chart in a personal reading, please book a consultation. And if this video helps you understand Chiron more deeply, please like this video and subscribe for more astrology content.